The wind tugged at the old ropes tied to the wooden piles of the dock. Hank and Fletch were checking the gear, getting ready to head out to sea. Two weathered fishermen who had worked together for over 10 years didn't expect this day to be any different from hundreds of others. That morning, the docks were filled with the usual sounds: the creaking of boats, the cries of seagulls, and the shouting of fishermen. The weather forecast was good, with a light wind and calm waves. Nothing pointed to anything unusual. For the third week in a row, the catch had been poor. The fish seemed to have disappeared from their usual spots. Many fishermen were coming back with empty nets, including Hank and Fletch. A bank loan for the boat was weighing on their shoulders, and the repair bills for the engine kept growing. They needed a good catch, or they'd have to sell their equipment and look for other work. Suddenly, the hum of conversations was drowned out by the loud sound of boat horns. Two boats from a rival fishing company entered the harbor, their decks packed with crates of fresh fish. When they docked nearby, a stocky sailor with a feverish sparkle in his eyes jumped off one of them. He spoke about a strange event: unusually warm water on a shoal at specific coordinates, where fish were practically jumping into the boat. The fishermen exchanged skeptical looks until the sailor showed them his catch. The crates were overflowing with more fish than most had seen in a week. Hank and Fletch quickly understood the situation. Given their tough financial state, it would be foolish not to check out the place. Half an hour later, their boat was already heading toward the given coordinates. The five-man crew worked in sync: Hank, Fletch, Wade, Brock, and Reed, a young trainee who had joined only a few months ago. The sun was rising over the horizon, painting the sea in golden shades. The boat cut confidently through the small waves, leaving a foamy trail behind. Seagulls, like guardians, followed the vessel, hoping for an easy meal. Hank stood at the wheel, watching as the GPS tracked the distance to the coordinates. His sun-weathered face, lined with wrinkles, showed deep focus. Beside him, Fletch was checking the nets. The whole catch depended on how well they were prepared. "About 5 miles to go," Hank said, looking at the screen. Brock and Wade were inseparable friends, both around 40, both having spent nearly half their lives at sea. They were preparing the gear, trading short comments from time to time. Reed, a young man around 20, acted as an assistant. His job was to do everything quickly and quietly, without asking unnecessary questions. Soon the crew noticed something strange. The waves suddenly stopped, an odd calm in the middle of the open sea. The air temperature rose by a couple of degrees, even though they had only gone a few miles from the shore. As the fishermen got closer to the spot, Fletch had noticed something unusual in the water. Thousands of small fish were jumping up to the surface, as if trying to escape something. The number of fish was incredible. It seemed like you could just scoop them up with a net without even needing the gear. The crew immediately began casting their nets. The process was well practiced over the years. Wade and Brock worked the winch, Fletch kept an eye on the net's direction, and Reed helped wherever an extra hand was needed. They threw the first net without any trouble. The second one was being prepared on the other side of the boat. But then Hank saw a large fin cutting through the water nearby. It was much bigger than any of the surrounding fish and was calmly circling their boat. Everyone froze, watching the strange sea creature. It dove underwater, then reappeared on the other side of the boat. Hank slowed the engine to get a better look at the unexpected visitor. The creature kept circling the boat in a steady pattern, sometimes disappearing below for a short while. When it fully appeared, the whole crew was stunned. It was longer than their boat, with a bluish-gray body, and looked nothing like a shark. "What the hell is that?" Brock muttered, grabbing the railing. The mysterious sea creature made another circle around the boat, then suddenly swam directly across the line of the already cast net. It all happened in just a few seconds. Its powerful body tore through the strong ropes easily, releasing the entire catch. To the horror of the crew, the net was completely ruined. Fletch cursed through his teeth. A new net cost money they didn't have. But something about the creature's behavior didn't seem random. It was almost like it had done it on purpose. It didn't just swim through the net, it had destroyed it intentionally. While the fishermen tried to pull in the remains of their gear, the sea creature fully jumped out of the water. Its massive body rose into the air and came crashing down with a loud splash, creating a wave that tilted the boat dangerously. Toolboxes slid across the deck, and something rolled with a crash. "Hold on!" Hank shouted, gripping the wheel tighter. After that, the creature began to move strangely, leaping out of the water dangerously close to the boat. Its movements were chaotic, but at the same time, it seemed like it was desperately trying to get their attention. Strangely enough, the small fish were copying its behavior, as if in panic. Reed was the first to say out loud what everyone else had already started thinking. "Maybe it's trying to show us something?" The others looked at him with doubt, but his words made sense. The strange sea creature had already shown unusual behavior, destroying the net and releasing the fish. And now it seemed to be doing everything it could to point them in a certain direction. After a short discussion, the crew decided to follow the creature. After all, the fishing trip was already ruined, and curiosity was winning over. They might return to port empty-handed, but something about this felt serious and deeply unsettling. Hank steered the boat toward the direction the creature had come from. For a while, they followed the fin that appeared now and then on the surface. The farther they got from shore, the stronger a strange smell became in the air. Heavy, oily, unpleasant. The sea, once a clear blue, was now turning murky. Rainbow-colored streaks started appearing on the surface and became more visible the farther they went. "What is that smell?" Wade asked, covering his nose with the sleeve of his jacket. Soon the fishermen saw the source of the smell. The ocean surface was covered with a dark, oily film stretching almost to the horizon. At first there were just scattered patches, but they started merging into larger areas until the entire visible sea was coated with a black-brown layer. "That looks like oil," Fletch said. "Someone's dumping oil straight into the sea." In the mist, the outlines of large ships became visible. The water around them shimmered with toxic colors, confirming the fishermen's suspicion. Hank sped up, moving closer to the source of the pollution, but keeping a safe distance. Through the binoculars, it was clear that the ships were anchored. They were cargo ships, probably tankers. From one of them, a hose reached down to the water, pouring a thick, oily stream directly into the ocean. There was no doubt. This was a deliberate dumping of waste into the sea. "Now it makes sense why the fish were acting so strange," Reed said. "They're running from the pollution." And then everything clicked. The warm water, the strange gathering of fish, the unusual behavior of the sea creature. It was all caused by massive pollution. Toxic waste was heating the water and forcing marine life to flee in panic, looking for cleaner areas. The crew exchanged looks. They had become witnesses to a terrible environmental crime. "Those ships are definitely dumping illegally," Brock guessed. "Why else do it so far from shore, where nobody can see?" "What are we supposed to do about it?" Wade asked. "We're just fishermen. This isn't our business." "It is our business," Hank replied. "Those bastards are destroying our livelihood. Without fish, we don't have a job." It was decided to collect evidence. Everyone had a phone with a camera. That should be enough to record what was happening and later report it to the authorities. For the next hour, they carefully gathered video evidence, moving around the dumping area while keeping a safe distance from the source of the pollution. The fishermen filmed wide shots of the ships, close-ups of the name and registration number on the side of one of the tankers, the dumping process itself, and the size of the oil spill. They also filled some empty bottles with the polluted water. It could be useful for testing later. The mysterious creature stayed nearby the whole time, as if watching what they were doing. It would appear on one side of the boat, then the other, sometimes diving underwater for long stretches, but always surfacing again. Once they had enough proof, Hank nodded. "It's time to go. We've got everything we need." They didn't even get the chance to turn the boat around when a loud ship horn echoed across the sea. One of the ships had spotted them. People appeared on the deck of the tanker, shouting and pointing in their direction. Soon, a small motorboat with 3 men aboard detached from the ship and headed straight for them. "Damn, they're coming after us!" Brock yelled. Hank quickly turned the boat and pushed the engine to full power. The old motor roared loudly, the boat jumped over a wave, and they sped toward the shore. The chase had begun. The pursuer's boat was smaller and faster. The distance between them was shrinking fast. "They're going to catch us," Fletch said grimly, glancing back. "Their engine's stronger." That's when something unexpected happened. Right in front of the pursuing boat, the familiar creature leapt out of the water. The wave it created was so big that the smaller boat nearly flipped. The men on board shouted, waving their arms. One of them even fell overboard. That delay gave the fishermen a chance to pull ahead. Hank steered the boat in zigzags, dodging between the few reefs jutting out of the water. The motorboat was still trying to follow, but two of the men were now focused on rescuing their teammate from the water. Then something even more incredible happened. The mysterious sea creature appeared again, this time hitting the side of the motorboat with its tail. The strike was so strong that the boat tipped and began taking on water. The pursuers had to stop the chase and focus on saving their sinking vessel. "Did you see that?" Reed shouted in awe. "It helped us." Hank didn't slow down until the coastline was clearly in sight. Only then did he let everyone catch their breath. "What was that creature?" Brock asked, still staring at the water behind the boat. No one knew the answer. They had seen something they couldn't explain. The creature that had cut through the sea with confidence seemed like a biological mystery, too large to be a dolphin, too agile to be a whale, and with behavior that suggested almost human-like intelligence. Back on shore, the fishermen didn't waste any time. Hank sent the footage to several places at once: environmental agencies, news outlets, and an old friend who worked in the Coast Guard. Fletch wrote a detailed report of the incident, including the coordinates of the tankers and everything they had witnessed. The response was fast and widespread. The videos of the oil slick and the illegal dumping caused a public outcry. Authorities quickly sent patrol boats to the reported coordinates. The commercial ships were detained. Inspections began, and water samples were collected. The company that owned the tankers tried to deny involvement, but the evidence was undeniable. It was confirmed that the crews had been dumping used motor oil and other toxic waste to avoid the high costs of proper disposal at port. After a full investigation, the ship owners were hit with massive fines. Criminal cases were opened against the management, and they were forced to fund the cleanup of the polluted waters. Their ships were banned from entering territorial waters, and the company was added to an international blacklist of shipping carriers. Reed wrote a detailed report about the encounter with the unknown sea creature and sent it to marine biologists. A few days later, he received a reply from a scientist at an oceanographic institute. The letter said that the creature likely belonged to a rare species of deep-sea whale, believed to be nearly extinct. In the last 40 years, only 2 confirmed sightings of this marine giant had been recorded. Normally, these whales avoided people and stayed at great depths. But for some unknown reason, this one had changed its usual behavior. The behavior you described, especially the deliberate destruction of the net and the help during your escape, shows an exceptional level of intelligence, the biologist wrote. While we know that whales are capable of complex thinking, such direct involvement in human affairs is extremely unusual. The scientist asked for permission to use the fishermen's video footage for research and offered to organize an expedition to the area, hoping to see the unique sea creature again. Of course, the fishermen agreed. The story about the pollution and the mysterious whale quickly spread through the coastal towns. Journalists swarmed Hank and his crew, asking for interviews. For a few days, they became local celebrities, but the fame faded quickly, as it usually does, replaced by new events. The authorities banned shipping in the polluted area. A large-scale cleanup operation began. Environmentalists tracked fish migration and the condition of marine plants and animals. Slowly, nature began to recover. The scientific expedition sent to search for the rare whale returned empty-handed. Even with the most advanced equipment, the creature could not be found. Most likely, it had returned to the deep ocean, where it had come from. Over time, the fishermen's lives returned to normal. The catch improved, especially after the pollution was cleaned up. Hank was finally able to pay off the boat loan. Fletch bought new nets to replace the damaged ones. Reed decided to enroll in college to study marine biology, inspired by the meeting with the strange creature. Sometimes the fishermen would return to the same spot where they had first seen the whale, hoping for another encounter. But the miracle never happened again. The mysterious deep-sea creature never reappeared. "Do you think we'll ever see it again?" Reed once asked as he stood next to Fletch on the pier. Fletch shook his head. "Probably not. But somewhere out there, in the deep, it's still swimming. And maybe right now, it's saving someone else." "You know," Reed said, I often wonder why it chose us, why it showed us what was going on. There were other fishermen out there too. Fletch shrugged. Who knows? Maybe we were just in the right place at the right time. A year later, the sea around the former pollution site finally began to heal. The water cleared, the fish came back. The fishermen could return to the job they loved. And the story of the whale became just that, a story told in coastal bars over a pint of beer. For Hank Fletch and the others, it was a day that changed how they saw the ocean. They became more attentive to the water that gave them their livelihood. Every time they went to sea, they watched the condition of the water, the behavior of the fish, and other sea life. And if they noticed anything strange, oil slicks or dead fish, they immediately reported it to the Environmental Service. One day, about 3 years after it all happened, Hank was fishing alone near the shore. It was a calm day, and the catch was good. As he headed back to port at sunset, he saw a splash in the distance. A large body briefly broke the surface and then disappeared. It could have been a regular orca or another whale, or maybe their old friend was just checking to make sure his sea was still okay. Hank smiled and gave a small salute toward the splash. He didn't tell anyone what he saw. Some things are better kept to yourself. Sometimes mystery is more valuable than answers.